For 3,000 years, humans were nothing more than legends whispered across the stars. Some called us the Shadowborn, others the Sun-Eaters, remnants of an ancient species said to have burned entire planets to ash before vanishing into the black. The galactic historians, smug in their robes and sterile archives, filed our kind under mythical threats unverified. They had no record of a living human, no coordinates, no sightings, just ruins scattered across distant moons, scars in ancient metal, and forgotten warnings etched in a dead dialect that always translated the same: "Do not provoke Earth." But they never listened. It started with a simple skirmish. A mining colony in the Dorthian belt sent out a distress signal, an unprovoked strike by a rogue species claiming ancestral rights to the asteroids. The Galactic Accord, bloated with arrogance and warships, sent in their fleets without hesitation. They expected a quick show of force. What they got was silence. Entire squadrons disappeared. Surveillance feeds went black. Not a single piece of debris floated back through the jump gates. It was as if the void swallowed everything. High Chancellor Velkos, a 10-tongued leviathan from the Outer Thrones, dismissed it. "A malfunction," he said. "Perhaps a wormhole collapse. There is no such thing as humans." He would choke on those words. I remember the day the skies darkened across 7 systems. Not from clouds, not from solar storms, from ships. Thousands of them. Sleek, silent, black as space itself. No banners, no diplomats, just one broadcast played across every channel, every language, every frequency. We are human, we are back, we remember. That was the first time in centuries the Accord knew fear. I was there on Zethor Prime when the shadows fell. I was just a low-tier engineer, crawling through rusted vents and drinking ration packs like piss water to survive another rotation. My species, the Varanthi, had sided with the Accord ages ago. We traded freedom for security. For centuries we bowed, paid taxes, and pretended to matter. But when those ships came, they didn't care who we were. They didn't attack us. They didn't need to. They broadcast what they did to the Accord's high fleet. The humans disabled their propulsion systems mid-flight, left their ships drifting like carcasses. Then they turned off their life support. Slowly. One by one, they watched the elite suffocate in silence. Not a single human face shone. Not a word. Just the echo of a message. You erased us, so now we erase you. Everyone panicked. Markets crashed. OI systems rebelled. Religions born overnight, worshipping the return of the Sun-Eaters. The Galactic Council fractured. Some wanted war. Some begged for peace. Others just wanted to run. But you can't run from a myth made real. I sat in my bunker that night, watching the skies glow red as distant cities burned. I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt something else. Respect, because we thought humans were extinct. We were wrong. They were waiting. And they were angry. The first time I saw one, I didn't believe it was real. They dropped from the sky without warning. No loud thrusters, no grand speech, no hesitation. The pod crashed into Sector 9 like a goddamn meteor. When the smoke cleared, what stepped out wasn't some towering beast or alien hybrid. It was a man. Not augmented, not armored, just a human in matte black gear, silent as death. He looked around like he remembered this place, like he'd been here before and was just checking to see what had changed. We were frozen, 6 of us, guards, technicians, a few civvies. No one moved, no one breathed. Something about him felt wrong, not in a broken, monstrous way, but in a controlled, terrifying one. Like he didn't care if we screamed or begged or fought. He just looked at us and said one thing in perfect Varanthian. You were told to never come back to Earth. Then he raised his hand. Not to attack, not to threaten. but to show us something. A hologram flickered to life in the air. It wasn't a battle plan. It wasn't propaganda. It was footage. Real. Unedited. From Earth. Cities in ruin. Skyscrapers half-eaten by vines. Oceans that swallowed continents. Skulls half-buried in sand. Not from war, but from abandonment. Earth hadn't been destroyed by outsiders. It had been left behind by humans. Your accord erased our existence, he continued, his voice low and unshaken. Because you feared what we might become. So we left. We took the stars. We built in silence. We remembered everything. Then the feed shifted. Earth again, but different. Massive underground cities pulsing with power. Planet-side reactors the size of mountains. Fleets being forged in volcanic forges. It was a military dreamscape, inhuman efficiency, forged from isolation and fury. He looked each of us in the eye. We're not here to conquer, he said. We're here to remind you what happens when you bury truth. Then he walked past us. Not a single shot fired. Not a word wasted. And just like that, the myth became a message. The humans weren't ghosts anymore. They were punishment. And they didn't need war. They needed memory. Later that night, the rest of his unit landed. Silent black phantoms, 10 of them. No medals, no flashy tech, just raw presence. They didn't speak, they didn't ask. They took over the control center and let everyone watch as the Accord's major communications array was shattered in orbit. One precise strike. Gone. It wasn't destruction for the sake of power. It was discipline. Calculated, surgical, unfeeling. The kind of vengeance you only see in creatures who've waited centuries. The panic that followed was chaos. Accord systems collapsed into infighting. Planets broke off to declare neutrality. And those who had spoken the loudest against the myth of humanity, they started vanishing. Some said the humans had sleeper agents. Others said they had psychic tech. A few believed they could read thoughts. I didn't believe any of it until I saw what they did to Governor Ralvek. He went on live broadcast, preaching loyalty to the Accord and mocking the humans. Called them feral relics of a failed planet. 2 hours later, he was found in orbit, floating in his escape pod. No wounds, no damage. Just a small inscription carved into the glass with surgical precision. We are the reminder. You are the lesson. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a war. It was a reckoning. And no one, not even the ones who never saw Earth, would be spared. They didn't leave Earth by choice. That's what nobody understood. For centuries we believed humans had vanished because they were too violent, too chaotic to survive their own evolution. The Accord's history books painted them as a warning, a species that burned too hot, too fast, and collapsed under the weight of its own ambition. But that was a lie. The truth was buried in their exile. Back then, Earth had become a battleground of ideology. Humanity stood at a crossroads, one side pushing for conformity with the galactic standard, the other clinging to their identity, their fire, their brutal and brilliant independence. The Accord offered unity, peace, integration. At a cost, the humans refused. They didn't want to rewrite their languages. They didn't want their military tech dismantled, their history sanitized, their culture flattened into diplomatic slogans. So the Accord labeled them as a threat, too unpredictable, too defiant. Then came the purge. Mass driver strikes disguised as meteor showers, bioweapons introduced through Accord aid missions, trade embargoes that starved continents. One by one, human outposts were wiped clean, not with open war, but through orchestrated silence. They wanted humanity to die off quietly, without a martyr. But humanity did something the Accord never predicted. They vanished, not in fear, not in defeat, in strategy. Entire cities went underground, into the Earth's crust, into the ocean trenches, into places no satellite dared scan. They shut off their networks, burned every connection to off-world tech, faked their extinction so completely that even the most advanced surveillance systems found nothing but desolation. And while the galaxy forgot them, they prepared. They trained in silence, built weapons not to impress, but to dominate, not to parade, but to end wars before they began. Over generations they forged a new doctrine. If we ever return, it will not be to ask. The man I saw, the first one, his name was never given, but I learned later they had no titles, no ranks the way we understood them. Their merit was earned by action alone. No medals, no ceremony, just scars and results. Their leaders were called archivists, keepers of truth, not to preserve it, but to use it. Every human child was raised with history burned into their mind. The betrayal, the lies, the friends who turned, the civilizations that stood by and watched Earth's fall. They didn't raise warriors, they raised consequences. One of their archivists, an older man with ice-gray eyes and burned scars across his jaw, broadcasted the truth galaxy-wide 2 rotations ago. No encryption, no codes, just raw footage and voice. Your Accord tried to erase us, so we erased our weakness. You traded truth for comfort. We traded comfort for strength. And now we're the last thing you'll see before your skies go dark. The impact of those words, I still feel it. My people, the Varanthi, we watched, silent and ashamed. We were one of the first to sign the Accord's sanctions against Earth all those centuries ago. We gave up nothing. We risked nothing. And now we stood between a sleeping beast and its unfinished vengeance. But humans weren't out for blood. Not yet. They weren't attacking randomly. They were targeting infrastructure, cutting power to planet cores, disabling orbital security grids, blackening out communication relays. Not killing, but choking. And every time they struck, they left behind the same symbol, a circle, cut through by a single vertical line. Earth's old emblem, reborn. They were sending a message with every blackout, every broadcast, every orbit burned dark. We know who you are, and we didn't forget. The fall of Drex's Prime didn't start with explosions. It began with silence. The planet was a jewel in the Accord's outer spine, resource-rich, heavily fortified, with a population that never saw war. It had defense satellites, orbital cannons, and a surface army bred for discipline. The kind of place everyone thought was untouchable, until the night the stars went out. One by one, their moons disappeared, eclipsed by something massive. Not a single shot fired, not a single warning. Just shadows. The citizens looked up and saw their sky swallowed by ships. Sleek, triangular human vessels. No flashing lights, no insignias, just pure, matte black steel. Drexis broadcasted an emergency call to the Accord. No response. Because by then, human forces had already severed every comm array across 3 systems. They'd cut off Drexis from the galaxy like a butcher slicing the nerve before the bone. Then, at 3:14 local time, the first lights went out. Not explosions, just blackouts. Entire districts plunged into darkness. Power grids failed. Surveillance cams turned to static. The orbital defense AI glitched and shut down, unable to recognize the silent fleet above. Their systems didn't crash. They were overridden. That was the human way. No mess, no chaos. Just cold, deliberate control. By the time the first military unit responded, the humans were already on the ground. Not battalions, not drop pods, just a handful. 6 operatives in black, each one moving like smoke. The Drexian soldiers couldn't track them. Their weapons locked, but targets vanished before triggers could be pulled. Screams echoed through their own command centers, leaders dragged away into the dark, their locations triangulated hours earlier. I got access to the footage after the fact. One clip showed a Drexian officer trying to rally his troops in a bunker. He didn't even hear the human behind him. No sound, just the shimmer of motion, and then silence. The human left without taking a trophy, just shut off the bunker's air and left them to die in the dark. Not cruelty, discipline. They hit the control tower next. No bombs, just a virus. A human-made AI, smaller than a datapad, was slipped into their mainframe. Within 3 minutes, the tower belonged to the humans. Every drone was grounded. Every defense turned inward. That was when the citizens began to panic. The Accord had told them the stories were propaganda, that humans weren't real, that Earth was a cautionary tale. But now Earth's ghosts were in their cities, shutting off their lights, breathing their air, walking through their homes like executioners. Within 12 hours, the entire planet surrendered. No official declaration, no ceasefire negotiations, just a message from the human fleet. Drexus Prime is neutralized. We require no tribute. We require your silence. And then they left. No occupation, no demands, just gone, leaving behind a world that would never sleep again. The message was clear. Humans didn't want territory. They wanted obedience, and the galaxy was starting to understand. Humans weren't playing war. They were war. The Accord called it Operation Radiance, a coalition of 47 species, 600 warships, and 5 high marshals. Every corner of the galaxy united to crush the human uprising before it became a movement. They picked the Arcanus Trench as the staging ground, a strategic choke point with jump gates in 3 directions, wide enough for a fleet, isolated enough to avoid collateral. They weren't just trying to win, they were trying to send a message. The propaganda began before the ships even deployed. Humanity is fragile. Myths don't hold ground. Earth is dust, and so will be their legacy. It was the kind of prideful noise people make when they're already scared. Because behind the parades, the reality was brutal. No one had ever stopped a human operation. Not yet. But the Accord believed in numbers. They thought if they brought enough firepower, they could drown the human threat in sheer scale. They didn't understand who they were dealing with. The first sign of failure wasn't in space, it was in the command decks. 2 marshals went dark the night before deployment. Not killed, turned. Their entire crew was found sedated, alive, but locked in their quarters. The marshals left behind encrypted messages. "We've seen what they are. We won't be part of this." Then, as the fleet reached the trench, the sabotage began. Ships shut down mid-flight. Coordinates scrambled. AI systems began speaking in a language no one recognized, until the linguists decoded it. Earth does not forget. Earth does not forgive. Then the real strike began. It wasn't from the front. It wasn't even from above. It was inside. Humans had infiltrated the fleet. Not through hacking. Not through force. Through time. They'd placed agents in cryosleep years ago, hidden inside cargo shipments, data cores, even as low-tier diplomats. No one knew how long they'd waited. Maybe decades, maybe more. But they woke up at the exact moment they were needed. Sabotage from within. A command ship detonated its own reactor, taking out 7 others in the blast. A hangar bay opened its airlock during launch, sending half its fighters into the void. Internal turrets reprogrammed mid-battle. Medical bays flooded with nerve gas. Security footage showed humans walking calmly through the chaos, emotionless, focused, executing every step of a plan no one else could understand. Then came the real strike. From behind the trench, where there was supposed to be empty space, hundreds of human vessels decloaked. Not warships in the traditional sense, sleek, angular, completely silent. No energy signature, just death. The Accord fleet tried to regroup. They couldn't. Every comm link jammed. Every nav system fed false coordinates. The stars themselves seemed to shift. Some ships crashed into each other trying to flee. Others were hunted down methodically, picked off like prey. The humans didn't call it a battle. They called it correction. Within 5 hours, the largest fleet in galactic history was gone. Not captured. Not defeated. Erased. And once again, the humans broadcast their message. You erased us from your history, so we are erasing you from ours. The galaxy trembled. The Accord denied it at first, called it a natural anomaly, blamed ion storms, claimed the humans used forbidden tech. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. This was about memory. And the humans were making sure no one ever forgot them again. He was once a name that could silence rooms, Tharix Veldor, Prime Minister of the Coalition of Thalvek. Back in his prime, he signed the treaty that sanctioned Earth's isolation. He called humanity an infection in need of sterilization, and his words echoed across 1,000 systems. He was applauded, rewarded, even knighted by the Accord for his decisive action. Now, 32 years later, he was nothing but a fugitive. His homeworld was ash, his fleets dissolved, his name, once spoken with reverence, was now whispered with dread. Because when the humans returned, they didn't strike him first, they struck everyone he ever trusted. His military advisors, found executed in their own bunkers, security systems untouched. His trade partners, bankrupted overnight, AI networks flooded with zero-value transactions. His offspring, 2 sons and a daughter, vanished during a diplomatic conference. Not a trace, just a message left in the ambassador's quarters. Your legacy ends with you. Remember that. Tharix ran. He abandoned his government, faked his death twice, and bribed his way onto a smuggler's freighter. He spent months in the underlayers of forgotten moons, eating scraps, always watching the shadows, waiting for them to come. And eventually, they did. Not with a battalion. With one man. A single human operative. He found Tharix in the ruins of Dalkan Station, hiding beneath a collapsed reactor core, breathing recycled waste air. He didn't come with threats. Didn't carry a weapon. He just sat down across from Tharix and waited. The alien, old and broken, tried to reason. Plead. Bargain. I was younger, arrogant. The Accord promised us unity. I didn't know. The human cut him off with a gesture. Then he pulled out a small, black data rod. No markings, no encryption, just history. He inserted it into a portable holo-terminal. Tharix watched, first in confusion, then horror. It wasn't footage of the war, not Earth's fall, not the Accord's lies. It was him. Every speech, every directive, every mocking statement about human primitivity, the smiles he wore while signing Earth's exile, the laughter during a banquet where the Accord toasted the death of savagery. It played without pause. Then the human spoke, his voice quiet, measured. You were never misled. You were proud. Tharix opened his mouth, but no sound came. You forgot Earth, the human said, but Earth didn't forget you. Then he stood up. Tharix flinched, expecting the end. But the human didn't move toward him. He walked to the edge of the broken station and pressed a small device into the wall. A low hum filled the air. What are you doing? Tharix asked, his voice shaking. Leaving you here, the human said. To die? No. The hum grew louder. A beam of light shot through the ceiling, piercing into the sky. I'm letting everyone know where you are, the human said. You'll live just long enough to hear what the galaxy really thinks of you, when you're no longer protected by title, power, or soldiers. And with that, he vanished. Within hours, bounty hunters swarmed the station. Former allies, enemies, even rogue members of the Accord. Tharix wasn't executed. He was auctioned, piece by piece, to fund the resistance against the very humans he'd once tried to destroy. And as he rotted in a steel cage on a slaver's moon, the message played across every system. This is what forgetting costs. The galaxy thought the worst was over. After the fall of Drexus Prime, the annihilation at the Arcanist Trench, and the public dismantling of high-ranking traitors like Therix Veldor, most believed the humans had made their point. Fear rippled through every system, but under it was a quiet hope. Maybe the ghosts would disappear again. Maybe they'd gotten what they came for. But humans don't spend centuries building weapons just to make statements. They were only getting started. Across the edge systems, those barren, lawless stretches of space where the Accord had always held a loose grip, things began to shift. Trade hubs started failing. Pirate clans once known for chaos and cruelty suddenly went silent. Intelligence reports whispered about black ships seen entering asteroid belts and never coming out. The truth was simple. The humans weren't just punishing the Accord, they were replacing it. And they were doing it from the shadows. One by one, minor systems fell into human hands, not through conquest, but through precision manipulation. A starving planet would receive a crate of nutrient packs, perfectly sealed, untraceable. Along with it, a small datapad with no buttons. When powered on, it displayed only one message: "We help those who remember." Within days, the planet's leadership would fall, not by force, by choice. Their people began whispering about humans as protectors, as judges, as the only species who'd ever stood up to the bloated corruption of the Accord. Some called it madness, others called it justice. Either way, systems began to defect. Entire regions cut ties with the Accord and declared neutrality under the Eclipse Protocol, a doctrine of independence forged in secret, its authors unknown, its words chilling. We do not kneel to diplomats who lie or empires that forget. We do not trade blood for peace or memory for comfort. We follow those who remember. And the humans? They remember everything. Back in the Accord's central command, panic was growing. Not because of the losses, they still had more ships, more weapons, more worlds, but because they were losing without being touched. Entire systems going dark, governments crumbling, cultural institutions collapsing from within. It wasn't war, it was a recalibration, a turning of the tide. And at the heart of it all, the archivists. The human leadership was no longer hiding. They began sending emissaries, one to each major sector. Never soldiers, always civilians. Older, weathered, quiet. People with eyes that held centuries of anger and intelligence behind them. They would walk into a planetary hall, calmly present a single data rod, and say, "We don't want your obedience, we want your truth." And then they'd leave. No demands, no threats, just a record of what that world had done, or failed to do, during Earth's exile. The rods contained unfiltered data, harvested over centuries, detailing which worlds had supplied the blockade, which ones profited, which ones cheered. It was undeniable, unaltered, inarguable. Whole societies collapsed under the weight of it, because guilt is heavier than war. One such world Siloth Prime tried to resist. Their leaders denied everything, accused the humans of fabricating evidence. That night, the sky split open. Not from bombs, from silence. Their entire orbital defense grid shut down. Their power grid failed. The sun disappeared, blocked by hundreds of human ships. But no attack came. No invasion. The humans just hovered there, watching. For 3 days, the planet fell into chaos, riots, starvation, government collapse. Their own citizens begged for the truth, desperate to know what had been hidden from them. And when the humans finally left, they left one final broadcast. "We don't need to conquer you. You will destroy yourselves with the truth." Across the galaxy, a new word began to spread. Quietly at first, then like wildfire. Reckoners, That's what the humans were now called by those who feared them and those who secretly revered them. Not warriors, not tyrants. Reckoners, not of justice, of memory. But the humans weren't finished. One final system remained untouched. The Accord seat of power, Helioris. A golden world, untouched by conflict for over 1,000 years, home to the Council of Species, the galactic heart of diplomacy and illusion. They believed they were safe. After all, they'd never fired a weapon at Earth. They'd simply signed the paperwork. And that was their mistake. The humans didn't care about who pulled the trigger. They cared about who allowed it. A high-ranking Heliorian diplomat, Counselor Vina, was sitting in her meditation garden when the message came. Not through her comms, not through any network. It played on the sky itself. Every screen, every panel, every reflective surface across Helioris glitched, and then displayed a single image. A young girl. Human. Wrapped in a dirty blanket, standing in a crumbling alleyway, the earth behind her, scorched and grey. Her eyes staring directly into the camera. Then came the voice. Not angry, not loud. Calm, measured, familiar. You didn't drop the bombs, but you stood by while they fell. You didn't write the orders, but you welcomed their rewards. You didn't kill us, but you made it easy for others to do so. Silence. Then another image. The Heliorian Council Chambers. Present day. Empty. Clean. Orderly. Overlaid with old footage of the same chamber, centuries earlier, celebrating Earth's sanction. Laughing. Toasting. One final message appeared. Helioris, you are not forgotten. And now, neither are we. Then every human ship in orbit activated. Not weapons, archives. They began broadcasting Earth's true history across the galaxy. Open, free, unencrypted. Footage of the purge, of human children choking in gas shelters, of AI massacres, of drone strikes in Earth's cities, of the last human president holding his dying daughter as the planet collapsed. The truth poured into every system, every network, every mind. Billions wept, trillions raged, and the Accord, it crumbled in days, not from human guns, from human memory, because this was the long game. The humans didn't just want to win a war, they wanted to burn the lie that started it. And now the galaxy watched as the lie died screaming. They gave the galaxy 7 days. Not a warning, not an ultimatum, just a countdown. Across every star system, the number hung in the sky, etched into the atmosphere by orbiting satellites, flickering in neon across every screen, blinking from holograms and hardwired comms. 6 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes. No explanation, no instructions, just time bleeding away. Panic gripped the worlds that still clung to Accord loyalty. Former allies begged for negotiations. Leaders broadcast apologies into space. Refugees flooded into old pirate sectors, believing the humans wouldn't waste resources on what they called cosmic garbage. They were wrong, because the humans didn't care about empires or titles. They cared about memory, and memory demanded clarity. On day 6, the archivists returned. One ship landed on every capital world still under Accord law. Silent vessels, smooth and black, their surface absorbing light. No weapons drawn, no soldiers deployed. Just a single emissary, cloaked in plain grey, stepping down from each ship carrying the same thing. A black cube. The cubes emitted a sound. Not a noise, but a frequency. And it made everyone remember. The moment the first cube activated, history came flooding back, not through images, but through sensation. Heliorian diplomats dropped to their knees, screaming as they felt the suffocation of Earth's dying children, their lungs burning in sterilized air. Varanthian officers vomited in the streets as their minds were filled with the helpless agony of Earth's evacuation, its people clawing at locked borders, begging to be allowed off-world. Some tried to destroy the cubes, but no weapon could touch them. They weren't tech. They were truth, refined and weaponized. On day 5, the humans spoke again. Their voice was projected into every city, every village, every device that could receive even the faintest signal. But it wasn't threatening. It was tired. 3,000 years ago we asked only to be left alone. You gave us silence and slaughter. You buried our names, you burned our records, you feasted on our fall. Pause. But we survived. Then came the offer. The reckoning ends in 7 days. You have 3 choices. Remember us, in full, without edits, without revision. You will teach what you did. You will show what you allowed. Your children will know our pain and carry its weight. Remain silent and vanish. Your names will be stripped from every archive we rebuild. Your planets will be erased from our maps. You will live, but you will be forgotten. Resist, and we will finish what you started. And that was it. No negotiations, no second chances, just choice. Worlds split down the middle. Civil wars ignited on planets that couldn't decide. Schools erupted in protest, some demanding the right to forget, others begging to learn. Families turned on each other, blood spilled in the streets, not because of power, but because of truth. The galaxy was being remade, and the humans never fired a shot. On day 3, the Eclipse Protocol worlds, those who had accepted the human truth early, began deploying the black flag, a circle split by a vertical line, not as a warning, as a symbol, of memory, of allegiance, and of fear. They had chosen to remember. They taught their children about Earth, about the fall, about what forgetting costs. They burned down their own museums, dismantled statues of Accord heroes, opened vaults of classified data that detailed the silent war against humanity, now read aloud in public square rituals. One planet even created a new holiday, Ash Day, the day they stopped believing the lie. On day 2, resistance came. One by one, they drifted. Then came the message. Earth no longer answers to you. Earth does not forgive. Earth remembers. The ships weren't destroyed. They were turned into memorials. Positioned around dead stars, each ship was hollowed, the crew removed, and a single plaque was left inside. These were the last to forget. We honor them by remembering their mistake. On the final day, silence fell. No attacks, no speeches, just silence. A suffocating, unending stillness that gripped every system, every world, every living thing in the galaxy. Because they didn't know what the humans would do. Would they strike? Would they vanish again? Or had they already done enough? Then, at the final hour, Earth itself finally spoke. Not through machines, not through emissaries, through the voice of a man, old, scarred, tired, standing before a camera in what appeared to be a ruined throne room, grass breaking through steel floors, walls blackened by fire and time. He said only this: "We are not your enemies. We are your memory. And memory is the price of survival." He paused, then looked directly into the lens. "Teach them, or we'll come back." The feed cut, and that was it. The humans disappeared. Their ships faded from orbit. The archivists vanished. The cubes deactivated. The galaxy was left to choose. Some worlds rewrote their laws. Some erased themselves entirely, choosing oblivion over shame. Some fell into ruin, unable to reconcile with the weight of what they'd done. But all of them remembered, because that was the only way to live now. Not in fear, in memory. And Earth, it remained untouched, not because it was defended, but because it didn't need to be. because everyone now knew you don't touch Earth, not twice.